All right, everyone. Thank you for joining the number 15 Campfire show. It's a very, very, very special show today. And I'm so excited to have Patsy, Veronica, and Christine on the show. We kind of pulled it together last minute. We had plans for this for today. And then on Monday, we got an email saying that you won a hackathon, and it was so inspiring and so different and surprising, and it came from such a good place as well, a place of heart and really wanting to help. um, that yeah, we had to try to make it happen, and we did. So um, I'm really really thrilled to have Patsy Price, Christine Anthony, and Veronica Adler on the show. I would love for you to introduce yourself. Maybe we can start with you, Patsy. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're dialing in from, um, what you're doing. I mean, what kind of work do you do? If you're a student, etc. And we'll go around, and then we'll talk about why you're here and why this is so special and so inspiring.
Okay. Well, I'm Patsy Price. I'm a current student in the New Camp Boot Camp, and I'm doing the back end class right now. And I was retired, but I decided that I needed to learn to refresh my coding skills, and I'm glad I did that. And so I'm calling in from Siskiyou County, which is Northern California, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Patsy. How about you, Christine?
I'm Christine Anthony, and I've been dabbling in code for the last 3.5 years, but just graduated from the full stack new camp boot camp on February 14th,
Oh, super
and
recent, yeah.
very recent. I knew I had to keep practicing, so thus joined this boot camp or the hackathon we're going to talk about today. I work as a program coordinator at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, and it is a university affiliated research center. So we do R&D. The projects that I work on are for our government customers. We do tactical systems and advise the government on the efficacy and end-to-end production and testing of a lot of those systems.
Oh,
It's exciting work. I love it, but I want to do more. I always, ever since I was little, I've always wanted to do everything. I have a lot of careers behind me, but I know that I'm going to be a full stack developer from here on out.
that's awesome. Where are you calling from?
I'm sorry. Oh,
Where are
I'm
you
calling
calling
from
from?
Howard County, Maryland.
Okay, great. All right, thanks for being here, Christine. What about you, Veronica?
Hi, everybody. I'm Veronica Adler. I'm dialing in from Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I graduated from the New Camp Full Stack Boot Camp in late October. Since then, I've been focusing mainly on front end development. I'm a very big visual person, so I love working with design and thinking about the user experience as well. I'm currently looking for my first job in the industry. Before I started studying code, I was a licensed massage therapist, and I also have a BA in English language and literature.
Well, thank you for being here, Veronica. So let's rewind the clock. And this campfire, we're not necessarily going to dive into why you started to learn to code. We're going to start about what happened, I guess, like just a week ago, right? I mean, so you enrolled in a hackathon that was scheduled for a weekend. Is that it, right? Or how many days was it actually? How long was it total?
2.5 days,
Two and a
probably
half
less than
days.
that, right?
And so you enrolled last week. Is that it?
We signed up as a team on Friday of last week, and it started, well, maybe it was Thursday, and it started Friday afternoon. Some of us couldn't start with the rest of the,
Yeah.
participants because job work. um, and then Patsy couldn't participate for a couple of hours during the Saturday session because she was helping other developers in New Camp
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
and taking her own workshop. But yeah, everybody that was participating was across, international actually. So we were all kind of on our own schedule anyway. Um,
Great. And
yeah.
so And so you were all three signed up for Hackathon last Friday. So when I say last Friday, it's really last Friday. It's
That's
like
right.
3/4, like the Friday 4th or something like that. And on Monday or Sunday, at the end, you were told that you won.
That's-
So
Some of us were still sleeping when because it was early in the morning.
and so we'll go into all the details about the project, but I want to get into your mindset. So you won, and can you actually tell us exactly what did you win? Because that's the mind-blowing piece in my mind as well, right? So what's the price of winning that hackathon? Who wants to go first?
So we had the best idea, the best prototype, the best research, the most working code, and the best pitch. So we
Okay,
won because we were most likely to successfully make it to market.
that's huge.
Huge.
And so okay, so let's talk about what did you build? What did you build during the hackathon? What is that idea? What is the product? What is it? Who wants to go
Anybody?
first?
Oh, well, we
Go, Patsy.
brainstormed it. We sat down and we had 4 different possibilities we could choose: disabled people, indigenous people, veterans, or Ukrainian refugees. And we decided to look at the Ukrainian refugees, and we started to brainstorm what would be something that would be super helpful. And Christine, was it you that came up with the fact that there was 50% of the refugees were children?
I didn't know the number, but I just thought everybody's trying to help the families. Why not help the children? There must be a lot of children. And it turns
Exactly.
out the children were 50% of the
Hmm.
Wow.
refugee population. So it worked.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
interestingly, though,
Yeah.
this was a good moment
So
when
the
we were.
actual product itself is, well, Veronica or Christine, you want to tell them? Because I just get goosebumps.
Yeah,
Like,
when everybody makes a decision on something, you usually will say, take a vote. Yeah, I vote on this idea. I vote on this idea. As soon as we started talking about the children, we didn't have to ask anybody. We just
Mhm.
instantaneously knew we needed to do it, and we just kept moving forward. There was no verbal confirmation of like, okay, we officially decided to do this for the children. So basically, it's a React app is what we built. Um, and the front end is will have it's a messaging for the child to message their father. And we thought it'd be great to have both the option to input some text or video record your voice, which would get translated to text. And initially, it'll just be stored in the device. But at the end phase, we would actually be able to transmit it to the father's phone. And at the same time, it would be a nighttime routine. So there's going to be a meditation area and Patsy, what else? Like a
Yeah, gratitude practice and yeah.
yeah, and then possibly some games at the bottom, but that wouldn't be
Yeah.
like the initial beta.
And so the idea is really to help children cope with the absence of the parent, the father.
Hmm.
And when I read about the app, we did an interview of you all and asked about the app itself. Everyone will think about, okay, the app needs to help the children communicate with the father. But what was very different and very thoughtful, I thought, was that meditation aspect, and practicing gratefulness. Who actually thought about that? And can someone, one of you, explain why it's there? Why did you think about that aspect of helping children cope and that nightly routine? Like how did that came up?
So the
Patsy
gratitude, yeah, go ahead.
Patsy had the most ideas on what would be involved in the app as far as the features, those kinds of features. So I'll let you speak about it.
yes.
So one of the things that struck me is that the children are leaving someone behind that they loved. And and at nighttime, if you think about it, if you're traveling, Ludo, you might call your kids and say
Mhm.
goodnight. Well, this is a way for them to say something to their father that we could store in perpetuity and that we could deliver at a later time if it's not connected. But also, when you look at traumatic experiences, refugee traumatic experiences, there's a couple of different medical and mental health protocols and modalities that they use. One of them is gratitude practice, thinking about what can they be thankful for, even though things might not be going great, there are still things they could be grateful for, and what can they look forward to tomorrow. And then the meditation was more for calming the mind and letting ease them into sleep, because a lot of children with trauma have trouble sleeping. So that's kind of how the ideas came about.
And that's great. Wow. And great. Have you had the chance? Have you been able to test it? Do you have kids? Like, did you try with them? Like, where are you in terms of what we
I was
call user test?
just I was just gonna go there, because in imagine you're a refugee family, you're a grown up, and you're dealing with so many stressful things.
Yeah.
You're very, you're not gonna have an hour to spend with your kids to settle them down when
Hmm.
they need you all the time. But if you have kids, that you can put a device in front of them and they will just zone into that and
Yeah.
be able to get their mind off of pretty much anything. It's hard for me to
Hmm.
get my son's attention, when he's playing his games. So if we do it right, I figured it would be just so helpful mentally for
Yeah.
them.
Which is why you have that gaming component into it as well, so that there's a level of interest, innate interest from that. This is great. This is so inspiring. So that was the idea. Can you tell us a little bit about how you executed? So you only had 2 days. You were I don't know how well prepared you were for kind of the expectation of that, and how much you were like, yeah, it's going to be super important and super real for 2 days. But tell us about how those 2 days went, and how were you able to deliver that impressive outcome of being number one pretty much in every category. How did you organize yourself? How did you work together? Oh, and I want to ask you about, did you know each other before? Like, how did you all come together as a group?
I mean, we only knew each other from the chats in Slack.
Oh, yeah.
And I was looking in what is the channel called, Patsy, that we
Women
use?
in Tech.
Yeah.
The Women in Tech channel.
Mhm.
I had never spent much time in there before, but I just saw that Patsy had mentioned this th.o International Women's Day Hackathon, and I was like, I should let's just do it. I just told Patsy on the channel, I was like, I'm signing up. Who wants to join me?
Yeah.
So we got a few. That was the beginning of it.
And so how did you join Veronica?
Yes, it was the same for me. I saw both Patsy and Christine posting that they wanted to do it, and if there was anybody else that was interested. And I had read a lot of articles by people that graduated New Camp and that they had mentioned doing a hackathon was a really great experience for them, that they had learned a lot as a coder, but also the networking. And I had never coded in a group before, so I thought, okay, this is like a great opportunity to get that all under my belt. Perfect timing. I got the weekend free. All right, let's do it. So yeah, like the moment I saw it was going on, I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And then it was funny, later when I saw, oh my gosh, it's going to be like 3 days straight. What did I get myself into? Okay, we're doing it anyway. Let's go.
See?
So Veronica, you were the coder. You're the person who kind of wrote the React app.
That's what ended up happening. I thought that like the three of us were going to be able to all do the code, but when we found out that that we were going to have to do so much for the entrepreneurial part of the project, We ended up having to divide ourselves further, and Christine had to do a lot for the presentation. And Patsy did code one of the, would you call it I would say a component
Yeah.
that had some nice animation for the gratitude part. So I did have their assistance, but I ended up having to do a lot of solo, unfortunately.
No, but that's great. I mean, that's what working in group as well is. Doesn't mean that you're all going to do the same thing. Quite the contrary. You
Yeah.
have to, divide and conquer and
Yeah.
come together and decide of the next step. So that's really brilliant. All right. So you come together. You didn't know or work together before. You just, roll of dice and you
No.
all come together.
We did pair program together though.
Okay.
But pair in that Veronica drove the keyboard and Christine and I chimed in.
And there was oh my gosh, this is so funny. There was like a 5-minute period of time that I was doing the research on how to get us out of our Git conflict.
Yeah.
And I was muted the whole time. And you guys didn't know I was trying to say, here, you should use this command, and finally I unmuted and I was like,
yeah.
So quick question. Is the app live? Can we see the app online?
No.
Okay, not yet.
Not yet.
You have the deck? Do you have, Christy, in your presentation, is it available somewhere? Can people look at it?
We can probably post it. It's now in a
That'd be
Google Drive.
interesting.
We
I mean,
have
if you feel
links
okay
and
with
we have
that,
just slide
it would be
decks.
interesting probably for a lot of people to
We
kind of
would
be inspired
love
by
to
that.
share it.
All right. So you're working on the app. You're really thinking hard about, what will your audience, your users need, what would help them most. And you have something so well done, so well thought out, so inspiring to many that you win every category. That happens on Sunday. But when do you actually, when you do the presentation, and I guess at some point you wrap up, you're done, and you're waiting for the results, what was your state of mind? Did you think to yourself, maybe we did a good enough job to kind of win that one? Or what did you think? What did you think was going to happen?
I did not think we were even in the running. I mean, I was prepared to fail and be happy about that because it was all of our first times. I finished the recording, while my family was sleeping still. And when we submitted everything and we were done, then I proceeded to make breakfast, and then there was an hour that went by where the judges were, looking at everybody's projects, and I joined the final kind of group meeting with all the teams. I was just exhausted, I looked like I was like, and then when she said our team name, Tech Jevies 3.0, you guys got won first place. I was like, I think we were all like, what? we were so stunned we didn't even celebrate for ourselves. We were just we were really confused actually.
That's brilliant. So let me actually tell everyone what's next for you. And I want to talk about that. I'm going to read from the article that we wrote. So you won 8 weeks of business and peer-to-peer mentoring. So for the next 8 weeks, and is it starting now, or can you pick when it's going to start, or have you thought about that?
It's kind of started.
It started. Okay. It's you're in it now in a way.
Yeah. We're talking with Sarah Landry of TH.O already.
She's the CEO. A go-to-market business plan created in collaboration with experts within the TH.O network. You're going to be introduced to 20 influencers within their industry. You're going to have 3 meetings with R&D, investors, and all clients in the field, and more apparently. So a lot of hackathon out there will give you a prize and say, hey, good job, pat on the back. No, you can go. But this one, it's really interesting how they're really doing a follow-up. And we had a pre-call, so you joined earlier, and I was listening to the conversation where we're talking about potentially meeting with investors, creating a company. So this thing got real pretty fast. um, and so how do you think about that? Like, how do you go from having an idea for a hackathon and then suddenly putting yourself in the mindset of an entrepreneur, having to think about, and by the way, many entrepreneurs start with, you're doing that on the side until it's successful, right? Because you have a day life and you want to keep, preserve that. But
Right.
what is your mindset now? So you have something that has been inspiring to so many. You have the team to build it. You could get funding to do it. What are you going to do next? Maybe one by one, I guess, or
We'll start with Veronica.
Well, I was just shocked by, the winning. It was a lot for me to digest. We ended up taking, I would say we had around 48 hours to decide if we were going to move forward or not.
oh, really?
Personally, yeah. Well, we kind of as a team decided to do that before we were going to discuss with Sarah. I'm hearing my own echo, so I just paused for a moment. So yeah, we had that time to decide, and I kind of thought this was moving a little bit too fast for me. So I'm actually not moving forward with the project, but I'm very happy for Patsy and Christine because they are going to pursue it. And they're working along with Rebecca and Andrea as well, who were our UX designers. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them.
Okay, I'll go next. You're smiling at me, Patsy. Yeah, so I have a couple of contingencies to work out, but I've agreed to continue part-time. I would say, Ludo, you asked, what are we going through? Like, how do you go from just an idea to thinking about starting a business, right? The only word that comes to me is agile.
Yeah.
Like, if, and on the other hand, it's just another project. You got to put a lot of, I'm just thinking in my head, and Patsy's done a lot of preparation already. It's just another project. It's just on a bigger scale, if you want to call it that. Or I feel like it's just simply an opportunity and to work with good people for good purposes, and I'm really excited to be a part of that, at least for a little bit. I would only be doing it part-time, but.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you're right. It's, I mean, my kid actually was telling me a few times, you don't want to have high expectations so that you're not disappointed afterwards, which is very true. I mean, you want to treat it as a project and see where it takes you, and especially a project like this one. Actually, could we? Oh, my kid wants to come in. Oh, geez, hold on.
His kid or his cat? I wasn't sure.
Well, there's a question here. Best
kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, he got locked outside. Yeah, I mean, but it's definitely something that when you actually take the time and when you invest all your knowledge and the support that you can get could really make such a really big difference. So yeah, I mean, what about you, Patsy? What are your thoughts? How are you
Well,
thinking about it?
I think this app needs to exist in this world,
Yeah.
and I want to do everything I can to make sure that it exists. I've already been thinking about what the sprints need to look like and what features need to be built. I've got a architecture, a working architecture. I've got, yeah, we get the business pitch, get the funding, get the team together, get the war room, start working on this, get it out there, and kind of got it chunked up in my mind. But I need to share that with the rest of the team and
Yeah.
collaborate with the team. This isn't the group dynamic is not that one person dictated how this was going to go. This was really everybody contributed, and it was just the most amazing experience I've had coding on an application. It was really great. All of us pivoted to what we needed to do. Christine recording the presentation, Veronica and I, working out merge conflicts.
Yeah.
And our UX designers were phenomenal. They built a beautiful wireframe that we used. They did the color schemes and everything, and they did the presentation deck. It was everything. It was just so
Also,
collaborative. And if you're a beginner coder, do not be afraid of hackathons. You will be able to contribute in some way, some form. It was
Beginner.
yeah. So they
yeah.
have they have UX designers that can
No,
lend the help.
well, we had two that joined our team,
Oh,
and they
that's
were
very good.
from General Assembly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
They also
So
had,
this is really inspiring. I really wish all the best for this project in any way that you are going to continue to contribute to it. And yeah, if we can also help, the community, will stay behind you. It's, as you said, I think, Patsy, it's a project that has really an immense appeal to those families that experience war in Ukraine and sadly in other places, of course, in the
Yeah.
world. And if you can really help just one child, I think it's probably worth it.
Yes.
I'd love to kind of now talk about another dimension of that venture, um, because this really happened the day of International Women's Day.
Hmm.
Um, and you mentioned the Women in Tech channel, where you all met together. I'd love to hear your story, I guess, in trying to get into tech as a woman. And I think some of you are kind of in tech, but I mean, Patsy, I think you're in tech today, but and how, I mean, maybe each one of you after the other, if you don't mind, maybe what is your story of, getting into tech as a woman? What have you seen happening? The bad, the good, the bad, and how, I mean, your thoughts around this, the situation of having only a few percentage of the engineers or the software engineer body being actually women right now.
Hmm.
Who wants to go first?
I honestly do not feel restricted from being an engineer because I'm a woman. At my organization I work at, a very strong percentage are women, and they're all the way at the top. I feel no, I fit it right in. I don't.
Yeah, I was one of two women in my engineering class when I graduated from Berkeley, and but out in the workforce, the gentlemen that were older than me didn't really accept me, but my
Mhm,
peers and younger, so welcoming. And my
mhm.
last development job, I was the only female on this particular team, but I felt like part of a team, not
Yeah,
like a woman on a team. I was just a developer on the team. They were so welcoming, and I think women are going to find that when they go out there.
great. So you think it may be generational?
Generational,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Veronica?
gotcha.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I went to an all women's college. So
Mhm,
then to have this experience doing the program where suddenly I was at times the only woman in the workshop. And I was like, oh, this is a totally
oh
different
yeah,
experience. This is like an interesting feeling being the only one in the room. Um, and I definitely think you can have a tendency as a woman to think like, "Oh, I've got to kinda, like, represent all women here," and, like, what if I ask a silly question or, like,
mhm,
you kinda think there's a lot of more pressure on you. Um, so I definitely experienced that, but I always had to kinda ground myself and say, "You know what? Like, we can't carry that burden, like, we have to be
mm,
ourselves and know that there's space for us here."
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, that is like an extra burden that we have to deal with and work through. I was very happy for the Women in Tech channel because I did find support on there while I was doing the boot camp. And since I've graduated, there's actually a lot of awesome groups like Women Who Code. There's also Tech Ladies. They have a very active Facebook community. So when I'm in partnership with those communities, I recognize like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. Like actually there's a lot of women out here doing this. Um, And I think that more women and more minorities in general, I'm also a biracial Latina woman, have to be in this industry because we know that technology reflects the perspectives and the values of the people that make it. So if only one group of people is making technology, it reflects the value systems of only one group. But when we have people coming from all different backgrounds, from different marginalized communities, it's like our diversity is more representative of different perspectives and more inclusive. So I'm definitely very passionate about this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's great to hear that, despite the fact that there's a small representation of women in tech, there's a lot of support structure. There's groups. There's really a lot of. I mean, those you can really come together as a body, coding bootcamp or outside, as you enter the workforce and kind of feel supported by, other women that are going through the same thing as you. And you're right, Veronica. I mean, a lot of times, and I remember hearing that very clearly at Microsoft when there were big pushes for diversity, and they were like, you don't understand. We're not just doing that because we have a ratio to hit. We're doing that because if we don't have a diverse body, we're not going to design the products that our audience needs. Like,
Yes.
we're not going to understand, we're not going to have the necessary nuances of perspective and understanding, and we're going to misalign, our features on our products with our audience. That's the reason we want to do it. And of course, we want to do it for the other reasons as well. But you're right. It's a matter of catering to your audience and making sure that you're thinking about them, empathy of your users. And so the best way to do that is to just have them in your employee count, pretty much.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on? I know there's and Veronica, you said that you went to a all women college. I think there
Yes.
are all women coding boot camps. Have you thought about joining an all women coding boot camp?
If I had known about it before, I may have considered
Yeah.
it more. And I find out too late, unfortunately.
I like a mixed gender myself.
Uh-huh.
I really do, because that's reflects the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
But I
yeah.
also see the point that you were making, Veronica, in terms of being comfortable and more at ease to ask questions, and you could feel more supported, or more, it could feel like a more open environment if it's you're surrounded by people that you recognize as your peer and as your same gender, I guess. This is really great. We're going to make a pause, and we're going to actually invite people to join us if they want to ask you questions. There is a link that anyone can click. If you have a working mic and camera, you can click that link, and you'll join us on the floor. We'll have you here, and we'll be able to hear you, see you, and you'll be able to ask your question. So click that link if you want to do that. But in the meantime, there's a few questions on the chat, and I don't know if you can see them. There's a ton of people who know you already, and they just want to congratulate you for the awesome efforts. CodeThin is asking a question about hosting a hackathon. So actually, I have an answer, but then I'd love to ask you also the question. So we typically, in the past, we've worked with Mint Bean, but they're on pause right now. So they've kind of paused their hackathon. That was our primary source of hackathon. How did you find out about this one? I think, Patty, who found actually th.o? Who found that hackathon?
I might have done a Google search for hackathons, and then
So
I
do
just
you know
posted the link
do you
in
have
Women in Tech.
suggestions? Like, I mean, definitely this one seems to be very rigorous and by the way, is it free? Can you attend for free, or do you have to kind of pay something? Is there a registration?
I'm sorry.
It was
Yeah,
free.
it was free.
Free. So you will recommend this one, I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Pietro? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know of any other hackathon? Like, have you looked into other hackathon as well?
I know of Mint Beans.
I used to get a lot of meetup
Yeah.
notifications for hackathons, but I haven't been seeing those since COVID.
Yeah. Meetups. Yeah. Yeah, Mint Bean. Yeah, I think they're on pause. Mint Bean. That's a problem. So and it's th.o.
Yes.
What's the website actually? Um, do you remember the
It's
website, the URL? Gotcha.
th.o.io.
Yeah, I have it here. So let me actually type it in the chat for anyone who's interested. An interesting URL, isn't it? th.o.io. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I mean, and let's actually talk about hackathon. Going through one yourself, how much would you recommend aspiring developer to do the hackathon? What did it bring you beyond, the app and the exposure? What are the benefits, in your own words, of attending a hackathon?
For me, I can say, so I never had experience working with other people in a coding environment. So now I know more of what that is like. And I feel like if I'm going into an interview and they ask me about that, it's like I have some experience that I can draw on. So I feel like that gives me much more of a strength kind of walking into job interviews. I know some of the pitfalls too that can happen working with several people trying to push to the same project on Git. And now I can say I have some experience with that. So I would say on a personal level, it gave me a lot of experience working with groups. I also found out that I like working in groups and like pair programming because you have several minds working through the same problems. I feel like for me, I realized, oh, this makes me a much more efficient coder. So I would definitely recommend it to anybody because I feel like you learn a lot about yourself. You also learn, how do I work under pressure? Do I like working under pressure? Do I not like this? Yeah, I think you learn a lot about yourself as a coder.
Great. What about you, Patsy? And
I was going to quit.
oh, really?
Yeah, I was going to quit because we were doing React Native, and I didn't know how to code in React Native.
Mm,
So, uh, uh, but I found ways to contribute, and I wrote a little bit of vanilla JavaScript. So I felt like I contributed, and that made me feel. Uh, I had some satisfaction with that. But the best part was it felt so great to collaborate with a team, and I just so enjoyed that. Uh, as Veronica said, working under pressure, we did it. We couldn't even believe it. We ticked all the boxes. It was pretty amazing.
great. What
So what
about you,
I thought,
Christine?
of course, I enjoyed the team work as well. What I thought was interesting and that I learned personally was that when we were on the tight schedule, tight deadline to produce the best product possible and just trying to win, um, there was so many ideas coming in from everybody really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a miniature um, sprint, and then an hour went by. We would do what we agreed to do. We would get back together, show each other what we did. New ideas would come up. And I remember at one point I had written a little bit of a JSON server and come back and was going to continue on that. We discussed kind of architecture and how the front end would integrate into the back end and stuff. But I remember the moment Patsy brought her experience and said, I feel like this is the point in time where we need to do the pair programming and everybody just focus on the front end and support Veronica while she wrote up all the components to pull the front end together. And at the same time, I was like, usually sometimes somebody would be like, oh man, I really wanted to finish writing the back end, but
Yeah.
there was none of that. It was just like we were all zoning in on that goal to just have a good finished product. And it was very easy for me to be agile and switch gears and focus on the presentation at that time and, helping Veronica with the front end part. So just
Yeah.
an amazing example of how you can have expectations, but easily change those
Mm.
expectations to fulfill your goal and get so much more done than you would have otherwise, right?
Yeah.
You have really lived through what other regular teams, employed 9 to 5, now 5 days a week, will experience in like 1 month or two.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been so compressed.
Mm-hmm.
that you had, to your point. I mean, learning agile, I really understand your point. Is you've really learned to adjust real time. Like it's not a week, it's an hour, right? Like
Yes.
you've
Yeah.
really, everything was so compressed. And it must have been so challenging to be organized and to do the right time management. Because if you had to count how many hours you had to work on, and I'm guessing like 12 hours total, maybe something like that. You I mean, multiply by 3, of course, but like you didn't have a ton of hours to put down to deliver everything you had to do. So the time management must have been insane. And being able to actually work as a group like that, and knowing when to switch from back end to front end, that's really impressive. That's extremely impressive. And yeah, and learning that in such amount of time is huge. Wow. Would you do it again?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
Cool.
need some more time to recover before I answer that.
Yeah, not this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, let's see what else, what other questions are here. Oh yeah, Kothin has another question here. And that's a question for you all to answer, really. What's the best tip you can give a beginner on how to work with a group?
I'll start. And I'll start by saying I asked the same question to one of your instructors, Lido. Nasim Baki, I think is how you
Okay.
pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
Best instructor ever.
They
He
all say that. Every instructor is the best one. No, he must be great. He must be great. Yeah.
he told me just to start when you're working with a group and you feel like you don't know much, just start with what you know
Mhm.
and try to find similarities with what you do know to what other people are talking about. And you honestly, you'll be surprised at how much you retain, especially if you're going through the boot camp,
Mhm.
because I mean, when I started joining kind of the dev communities at my organization that I work at, the very first one, after an hour of listening to all the experienced devs talking, I was like, holy moly, I understood 80% of that conversation.
Isn't it great?
It feels great. Yeah, so just start talking about what you know.
That's
You'll
good.
learn
It's
it.
great
Yep.
advice. Start with what you know, and you'll realize you know more than you think. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Patty and
Uh,
Veronica?
I just, if you know how to do a PowerPoint slide, you're going to contribute because
Yeah.
that was very, very important at the last minute. If you can go do some research, go
Mhm.
look up something for somebody, you're going to contribute. So there's a lot of ways you contribute. Just open your mind, just be there, and ask questions. People are going to ask you for help, and it was just, you're going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
Great.
like my answer is in a very similar vein. I'd say know that it's okay not to know everything, and it's also okay to ask for help and to let others help you. Because sometimes you'll be surprised. Like I remember back in the boot camp, sometimes during the workshops, I'd go in and I'd be like, "Oh, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing." But then once we started going in the workshop, I'd find out, "Oh, actually, like." I'm going along. I feel confident about the material. And like, especially when you had the other people helping you, it's like, again, you're working even better when you've got more minds going at it. And sometimes somebody just like jolts your memory about something. You're like, oh yeah, like actually I do know that because I had my partner kind of jolt that memory of it. So yeah, just be open and receptive. You don't have to be perfect by any
Yeah.
means.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and there's a lot of imposter syndrome, and people thinking that they're not going to be at the level that others are expecting you to be,
Right.
and you should really put that aside as much as you can, because as you all said, everyone will be able to contribute, and what you know is already a lot, and you're gonna, I mean, you want to give yourself an opportunity to realize that, pretty much. Great. So let's continue. um, that's an interesting question from Ethan and Veronica. I think you shared with us that you have you're also from an Hispanic background, and you're a woman. Do you want to maybe take a stab at trying to answer Ethan's question?
Sure. I don't know if my journey was particularly like different maybe than somebody of another race, but I can tell you a little bit about my journey and maybe what I would recommend to somebody else coming from a minority background. So for me, I was a licensed massage therapist for 4 years. Coding was like not on my radar at all. Um, but I knew after doing massage therapy for a couple years, it was a very physically intensive job. Um, and I was just lacking like intellectual stimulation. So I knew in the long term I was going to have to transition to something. So when the COVID pandemic happened, I completely lost my job. The company I'd been working for went under, unfortunately, permanently. So at that point, I kind of said to myself, okay, well, this is quicker than you thought it was going to happen, but this is like the time to figure out the next step. So I took some classes online and I found this really good Python course that was Intro to Python on Coursera. Um,
Yeah.
and I just started working through it at my own pace. And I was like, like this is challenging, but I keep coming back to these concepts. Like there's something here I just am gravitated toward, and like it's holding me intellectually. It's interesting. So I found myself focusing more and more on code versus any of the other classes that I was trying out. And I took my time and like did research on the field. I did more research on the industry. I did research on, how can I transition into this industry? I talked with some professional software developers about how they got where they were, people that had been through coding boot camps and their experiences. So eventually I decided that the coding boot camp was the right choice for me, largely on a financial level, but also like the time investment as well. I had to think about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of specifically coming into this as a minority, I would say knowing that there's groups out there to get support. Like as a woman, there's like I said, the tech ladies, there's women who code. I'm sure there's even more. But there are also groups too. Unfortunately, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but that are for people coming from minority groups as well. So like, again, having that support and like talking to other people from minority groups helps, because then you have role models that you can look up to, because it is very isolating if you feel like, oh, I can't like see myself doing this. So I think connecting with people on that personal level, knowing you're not alone.
That's a very good point. I would say, in my mind, there's a universal approach to get into tech that everyone should just take. You want to learn on your own. You want to try it out. You want to see if it works. Coursera, free code camp, you name it. You want to consider your options, college, coding bootcamp, whatever. But then you're right. Then out of that universal path, you have those specialized groups, those diverse groups that can really bring you the dimension that you need to really, because you're in a unique situation, or you're in a city, even, you're in a neighborhood, you're whatever. Yeah, that's very, very helpful. Thank you. So let's see if we have other questions here. Oh, I think there was one from Code Thin. There you go. Do you have you have thoughts on that? I think we kind of touched on it. I didn't know actually that the number of women in tech had been declining. I know it has not really risen, but I didn't know it had been declining. Well, any thoughts on reversing the trend? I mean, the $1 million question is, why is that, do you think?
I have a lot of women friends in tech. Yeah, I have a lot of women friends in tech. I don't know about these numbers. I don't see it, so I can't help with this question.
Yeah, I would say if that is true, right, then I would attribute it to COVID and having the kids stay home, and that's hard.
That's a really good point. I also think if that is true, because I actually didn't know about that statistic either. Part of it is that as girls, like, we are not encouraged to go into STEM fields. I think that that's changing, and now that there are more groups like doing that outreach, trying to teach women at a young age these fields so that they can garner interest. But I do think that there's still a little bit of that idea that, you know, girls are not interested in this.
Yeah.
But we definitely are. I also think that for somebody who's looking to hire more women or minorities, there's ways that you can write your job postings that more cater to minority groups. So I think that that's something they would have to think through as well. I actually went to a conference recently where they were discussing that, and they were talking about what women prioritize in the workforce that is different from men, and they had done some research on that. So there's ways also too that an employer who's really looking to do that work to diversify their team, there's ways if they read that research that they can appeal more to people from minority backgrounds.
Oh, that's a very good point. So really in the way that you write the job descriptions, like presenting the job or maybe having benefits or I mean, what would you have in mind? Like, what do you think if you saw that in a job description, you will think, oh, that employer really thinks about women? What would it be?
Yeah, one of the things would be like support for family leave or maternity leave.
Yeah.
Places for you to work remotely or have flexibility, like working from
Yeah.
home, because I would think, okay, that place might support like a parent that needs to take care of their children. Also, somewhere that supports more work-life balance. Also, too, we know statistically that women tend to under-apply in terms of their abilities. So, like, for example, if you have a job that, like, it says it's entry level, but then it's asking for, like, 10 years experience and, like, this and this and that, a woman is less likely to apply to that than a guy, even though they might just be as equally qualified. And a lot of times we know those job postings don't necessarily reflect the skills that are needed. So I think that if you want to appeal to women, you'd have to take that into consideration as well.
Yeah. There's a level of humility that some men don't have, you know. Yeah, I can do it all. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll apply and we won't.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's really good. More questions coming. Oh, that's a great one. We're back to on the hackathon topic. What is the typical structure of hackathon? Do you work in blocks of hours for multiple days? What are the differences between in-person versus online collaboration? What would you say about that?
I'm
Well, I think
glad
we're
we
all
did
first
not do this.
timers, right?
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't do this in person.
Oh, yeah?
I'm glad
Why is
it was
that?
online because you could go and take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's way more flexibility and
Yes.
absolutely. I can see that.
So I think they're different, right? Because Sarah today was telling us that th.o does 14 hackathons a year, but they're all different.
Oh.
So they used to be in person,
Yeah.
but now they're online. Yeah, to your point, Patsy, I was able to go and like make breakfast for the kids and help with
Yeah.
the laundry and then come back, you know, like walk around, get the blood flowing a little bit. But yeah, it was, I mean, we're also used to doing everything online now. It was almost like being in person, not quite, but
We have Ken asking a question, and actually I didn't see you, Ken, on the stream. Ken, if you wouldn't mind switching on, there you go. Okay. Ken has actually a comment that he wants to share with us. Let's bring you on the floor, Ken. Okay, Ken, you're with us.
Yeah, to your point, Patsy, I was able.
Oh, and you wanna mute your other tab? We can hear ourselves.
Come back, you know, like walk around, get the blood flowing.
Oh, we cannot hear you though. Do you have your mic on?
Hang on.
There
Can
you
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm still hearing
Ken
the other
asking a
voices.
question, and actually I didn't see you, Ken. I think we have an echo. We can hear ourselves in your mic. You must have the YouTube video playing on one of your tabs. Let's bring you on the floor, Ken.
Right.
Ken, you're with us.
Can you hear me now?
To your point, Patsy, I was
But
able.
we also hear ourselves again. Your other tab, we can hear ourselves.
Come back, you know, like walk around, get the blood flowing.
All right, I see. Yeah, I fixed it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Ken.
That the YouTube one was still on, and then this one as well. So it's nice to join you guys here. I want to say something about the declining number of women in tech. I think that it may not just be something anyone has to do on the surface, but on the family level, if say parents encourage like the female children to take that position. Like myself, I have three girls, and I've already made up my mind that as when they're old enough to start doing anything I would do as a man, I will get them involved. I'm already gonna my first is 5. I'm gonna get her to start coding. For me,
Cool.
I see tech as just like people learning English and maths.
Yeah.
You know, that is my opinion because there is no job in this current world and in the future that you will not need tech. So the ideal thing for me will be just get them involved. Again,
Yeah.
that's my personal approach. And if people will encourage people to do that, they may end up not doing it in the end. Not everyone who studied maths or English in school ended up doing anything related to maths or something like that. But we were forced to do it. So I think
No, you're right. It's
I think I think it should be that should be the approach because everything we do in this current world now has to do with tech. So we should equally encourage our kids to take that as a compulsory topic or subject or something they have to do. So
yeah, it
I
should
think
be
that
part
way,
of the
that way
curriculum.
yeah,
Be
that's
part
what
of the
I think.
curriculum in every school. Totally.
Yeah.
And isn't it actually? I'm not very familiar with um, the most recent curriculum in the schools in the U.S. schools, but is coding taught now? At the early age. I think
They,
Minecraft kind of
they
started that.
have they're teaching Scratch in the schools,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
some of the curriculum is actually they actually type out JavaScript as
Mm.
practice as part of their English class. But I send my kids. I think there was another comment about Code Ninjas.
Yeah,
My kids go to Code Ninjas, and they didn't have
there
a
you go.
choice.
Yeah,
It's like you learn math, English, and Code Ninja.
that's pretty cool.
So I totally agree with you. I know that when I was young, I wanted to be an electrical engineer like my dad. And when it was time for me to join the engineering school, which I did get into, um, there were some comments that made me feel like he didn't really expect me to fulfill that dream. And it
Oh yeah.
was
Mm.
that, you know, uh, and I didn't. um, but that was my choice, right? But it's definitely starts with the family. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Hey, did we hear one of your daughter in the background? If she's around, just bring it over. I want to see one of your daughters. It
Just
sounded
just
so
one
cute.
just one
Yeah.
moment. I think she wanted to have a wee. Just for a moment.
All right.
Thank you.
This is so good. Well, while Ken is gonna grab his daughter, I hope it's okay. I hope she wasn't going to bed or something. Well, let's see if we can answer that question while Ken comes back. Which part concept did you find most difficult, and how did you overcome it?
For me, it was learning React, which ironically now I love React. React is my favorite. Um, I would say how I overcame it was just understanding that I needed to take the time with it. I went through the course and I did find it very overwhelming the first time around. And I did the best thing for me, which was to take a break and study a bit on my own. And I have to say that that made all the difference, just taking that extra time, like knowing that I needed that extra time. Because then when I came back and I did React Native, I was like, all right, like I got this. I felt a lot more confident. And yeah, now ironically, React is my favorite go-to library.
Yeah,
This is
learning
great.
how to code is not hard. It's finding the time to
Hmm.
watch the extra videos you need to grasp those concepts, and finding the time to read up on it and then practicing, right? So it's just the
Repetition,
time. You got
repetition,
to put the time
repetition.
in. Hmm.
And you're right, Veronica. People, I mean, it's not like you're going to learn to drive a car. You can't expect to learn it and then know how to do it immediately. And some people are not used to that type of learning where you're learning something and you realize you don't understand it, and then you don't understand it, and then you don't understand it. And then at some point you do understand it and you're like, oh, okay, that's what it means. But it's rarely immediate. And the lack of immediacy in I get it is super frustrating and weird at first until you get used to it. We have a ton of people, but actually we kind of out of time. But are you all available for like 10 more minutes to go over the remaining questions? And I want to say hi to Ken's daughter as well.
Hi.
Hello, what's your name?
Oh.
No, she doesn't know. All right, thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Ken. We're gonna let you go.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
for your contribution.
Bye.
And yes,
Bye.
we've seen the future coder here. Take care, Ken.
All right.
Let's
Thank
bring Jason onto the floor. Jason, if you hear us, I think you're on the phone. Are you? Yeah, you available? Okay, let's bring you on the floor.
All right.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
can
pretty
see you.
cool, pretty
Okay.
well.
Yeah,
A
someone
nice,
who actually
curve.
questioned in the YouTube channel as well. So just a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned that coding is not hard. You know, it just takes a lot of practice. So I wanted to know how much practice did you, because like with me, I have two daughters. I find it kind of hard. You know, in the evening times, I'll get online and study. And then even when I was taking the New Camp course, the Python and SQL course, it will be every Saturday from, you know, early in the morning until like midday and then throughout the week. So how much time did you actually put in to learn React? How did you kind of, you know, put that kind of organize your schedule to where you could actually learn React or React Native, you know, and how long did it take you to actually fully learn it?
So I put in about 4 hours a day.
4 hours? Okay.
And I wish I had more, but that's what I was able to negotiate with my family.
Oh, right.
You know?
And
Okay.
I do 6 hours a day, but it's ABC. Always be coding. Don't skip a day.
Right.
You have to code every day.
Wow.
Okay.
Weekends as well, like you had busy weekends.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do a little lead code, or I'll do a little just a little tutorial or something. But it's got to be every day when you're learning now. Yeah, when you're professional, you're going to be coding 8 hours a day, so you can take a day off. But when you're learning, every single
Right.
day.
Keep it consistent. Okay.
I always
Well, I
did
appreciate that.
at least 2 hours. If I had more time or kind of got into a flow, I would. I would say honestly that building is always the best learning tool. Because learning like the theories and the concepts is one thing, but then once you actually start applying it and you get like all these different errors that you have to deal with, I mean,
Right.
honestly, that's gonna teach you a lot just in experience. But like I said, like I took my time with it. I actually did take breaks. Like I would sometimes take the weekend off. Like that's just me because I knew myself as a learner. Like I need that mental break to do like that high intensity intellectual work. So I would just say you have to find what's right for you and you have to know how you work best and advocate for yourself.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank
My
you. Well,
son,
go for it.
Jason, my
Uh-huh.
son is a professional developer, and one thing he shared with me is he starts every day with Code Wars Kata. He does a little short bit of code to warm up for the rest of the day. So that's
Oh,
something
wow.
to consider as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And he makes fun of me if I don't do that, so I have to.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
All right. So thank you, Jason, for joining. Great question. We're really out of time. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Patsy, Veronica, and Christine for joining this stream. It was a real pleasure to have a chance to have a conversation with you, hear about your journey, the hackathon, the project. I wish you the best. And as we discussed, happy to help, but really the best with the project. Wherever you take it, is it, maybe it's going to be a big company and a big product, or it's going to be a passion project. But I really wish you all pretty much to do whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah.
I know you've inspired a ton of people already on multiple fronts. Women to get into tech. You've inspired people to do something to help refugees and the war in Ukraine. You've inspired people to join Hackathon as well, so
Yeah.
that they can practice their coding skills. So, I mean, from my standpoint, job done already, and everything else is cherry on top. So,
Yeah.
thank you again very much.
Yeah.
I wish you a great weekend. Let's
Thank
stay in
you.
touch, and take care, everyone. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.